Hi, my name is Rafael Lopez, and I'm a program manager here at Microsoft on the OneDrive and SharePoint team. Here with me today is Stephen Rice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Rice, and I'm also a program manager on the OneDrive and SharePoint team. Really excited to be here.
Today, we're going to be giving an overview of how OneDrive enables you and your organization to collaborate on files easily and securely across Microsoft 365. Of course, today, with a focus on external sharing. Usually, when we give this session, we do it at Ignite in Orlando in front of a crowded room. Of course, this time around, we're not able to do that, but I hope that wherever you are watching this, you're staying healthy and that you're keeping yourself safe. Thank you for joining us, and I hope we deliver a session that you find valuable, fun, and exciting. So over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to go over 4 main topic areas. We'll start by giving an overview of how OneDrive enables you to share across Microsoft 365. And next, we'll dive into what's new. It's been about a year since we last spoke, and Stephen and I have a lot of demos to show you that we can't wait for you to take a look at. And then towards the second half of the session, we'll switch gears and we'll switch to the admin perspective and show you all of the different ways that you can manage and control how external sharing works for the unique needs of your organization. So let's get started. You know, one of the main takeaways that I want you to get from this recording is that OneDrive makes external sharing easy and secure across Microsoft 365. And so in this overview section, we'll go over what I hope are relatable scenarios and show how OneDrive makes it both easy and secure to accomplish them. So this first one, it's really simple. I have a folder filled with sales materials that I need to send to a prospective customer of mine, Larry. And I want to make it easy for him. You know, I just want to send a link and I want to have it work. I don't want him to have to go through any kind of sign up or anything like that. After all, this is really representing me and my organization, and I'd be embarrassed if it didn't work. And because they're just sales materials, I'm okay if he goes and forwards it on to other people. So let's dive in straight to our first demo and see how we can do that with OneDrive. So here I am on the OneDrive website, and all I have to do is select my folder with sales materials and hit share. And from here, I'll just type in Larry at fabricamairlines.com, select him, and hit send. And now OneDrive is going to craft an email notification and send it to Larry. So let's switch over to Stephen now and see what that looks like from Larry's perspective.
Thanks, Rafael. So here I am in Larry's Gmail inbox, and I see I've got an email from my partner, Nestor. All I have to do is open email, admire the mail that OneDrive has crafted, and click open. And you'll see, just like that, I'm taken into OneDrive. I'm able to see all the files and folders that Rafael showed me. And I can take a look at the pictures and decide that, you know what? Yeah, I really do like that blimp. I'm going to buy it.
So as you saw, it's really easy to send a shareable link with OneDrive. All you have to do is hit share, type an email, hit send, and you're on your way. Now, sometimes your organization might have changed what the default link is set to, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the session. But if this ever happens, all you have to do is go into link settings as shown in this screen here and choose the option that's most appropriate for what you're trying to do. So let's go behind the scenes and talk about, you know, what did we just see? What is an anyone link? Well, an anyone link is a transferable, revocable secret key. It's transferable because it can be forwarded to others. When I send it to Stephen, Stephen can go and forward it to anybody else inside or outside of my organization or his organization, and it would work just as easily as it did for him. But it's revocable. This is one of the benefits of working in the cloud. I can go into OneDrive and I can delete that link, and everyone that has it will immediately lose access in that moment. But it's a secret. You know, users need the link to have access, and they can't guess what that link is. There's no file names in it, no folder names in it. Someone really needs to give them the link for them to have access. And so when you look at it visually, you'll see that, again, if you have the link, you have access, whether you're inside or outside of the organization. And if you don't have the link, you don't have access. And when you get the link, you can choose to forward it to anybody else in the world. And so these are really the easiest way to share files and folders in OneDrive. For the vast majority of scenarios, they're really all you need. They're guaranteed to open for anyone who receives them on any device, whether they're on a phone, tablet, PC, desktop, doesn't matter. And again, crucially, recipients decide who else gets access to that file by choosing who else to forward that link to. Now, of course, these don't solve all possible scenarios because sometimes you'll have content in your organization that you want to make sure external users can't access. And so, but at the same time, you still want to enable easy and seamless collaboration within your organization. And so when you look at these links, people in my organization links, when you look at these visually, you'll see that, again, if you have the link, you have access as long as you're within the organization. But even if that link accidentally leaves your organization and an external user clicks on it, OneDrive will protect your content and block them because they'll be asked to sign in to an account that they don't have. But really important to understand that even within your organization, when you create one of these links, people in your organization that don't have the link don't have access. And so what that means is that they won't be able to find your file via search, or when they go to office.com and they see the recommended strip, they're not going to see your file there if you didn't give them the link. So this next scenario is one where I have a more sensitive file that I need to, again, share with a prospective customer of mine, Larry. And I want to keep it secure. And what I mean by secure is that I don't want Larry to be able to forward it to anybody else. But that doesn't mean that I want to make it difficult for him to access it. I still want to make it really easy for him to view the content that I've shared with him. So let's dive in and see how we can do this with OneDrive. So here we are again on the OneDrive website, and this time I'm going to select this blueprint file right here. So I'll select it and I'll hit share. Now I'm going to go into link settings because, like I mentioned, this time I don't want that link to work for anyone that gets that link. Instead, I want it to only work for Larry. So I'm going to choose specific people and hit apply. And now all I have to do again is type in Larry, fabricamairlines.com. I'll select him and I'll hit send. And again, OneDrive is going to craft that email notification and send it to Larry. So let's again switch over to Steven and see what this looks like from Larry's perspective.
Thanks, Raphael. I am once again here in Larry's Gmail inbox, and you'll notice that Larry doesn't use Microsoft 365. He doesn't have an account to sign into, and OneDrive isn't going to make him sign up for one either. It's going to make it easy and secure to collaborate. All I have to do is open up the email that Raphael sent me, and OneDrive will ask me to verify my identity. We do this by sending a one-time passcode to the email address that was shared to. So all I have to do is switch back to my inbox. So it's got my code. All I need to do is copy it, switch back to that verification screen, and enter it. I've now proved that I am the person that Raphael originally shared to, and I can access the content and review the blueprints for the drone. OneDrive has made it easy and simple to collaborate.
So, unlike before, specific people links are non-transferable revocable secret keys. And so what that means is that they won't work if they're forwarded to others because it requires recipients to prove that they're intended recipients. And the way that they do this is by signing in to an account if they already have one. But like what we saw with Steven's demo, if they don't already have an account, they don't have to create one. Instead, they simply sign in using a one-time passcode. So as you can see, specific people links are a great way to share your more sensitive content, and they're easy to use. We get asked this a lot, which is if I use OneDrive and I'm sharing with people outside of my organization, are they going to have to sign up for any kind of account, like a Microsoft account? We know that this can be frustrating just because people forget what those passwords are, and it just causes a lot of friction. But so the answer is no, people don't have to sign up for accounts. You simply enter in these simple one-time passcodes. So as you can see, you can use OneDrive to share easily using shareable links, either ones that work for anyone or ones that block external users and only work and can only be forwarded within your organization. And we showed how possible and easy it is to share securely to a specific external person without requiring them to create an account. Now, all of the demos that we just saw were done out of the OneDrive website, but we know that not everyone lives and works out of the OneDrive website. But in Microsoft 365, we have a consistent sharing experience. So whether you start in the OneDrive website, or maybe you typically work out of the SharePoint website, or if you're like me, you typically start in Office, whether it's on the web, desktop, or mobile. But speaking of desktop, we know that there's millions of users out there who start every day out of File Explorer. But if you're a Mac user, we have you covered as well in Finder. And recently, we've also introduced support for Outlook and for Microsoft Teams. And so no matter where or how you work, OneDrive enables you to share throughout Microsoft 365 with the same sharing experience and all of the same sharing capabilities, whether you're on the web, desktop, phone, or tablet. So throughout this session, Stephen and I are going to be referring to OneDrive a lot, but please know that whether you store your files in OneDrive or in a shared library as part of a SharePoint site or a Microsoft team, because OneDrive is the Files app for Microsoft 365, everything we talk about here applies to all files throughout Microsoft 365, no matter which apps you depend on the most to do your work. So next, like I mentioned, it's been about a year since we last spoke, so let's dive into what's new for users, and we have a lot of demos to show you. So in the spirit of a consistent sharing experience, we thought it would make sense to start out by showing the new sharing integration that we have in Outlook. So this time, I'm going to start in Outlook on the web. And I see that I got an email here from Deborah with some 2021 product forms. And I know that this is something that my manager, Megan, was interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and forward this email to her. Now, as I do this, keep an eye out on this link down here. So I'll go and I'll enter Megan on the to line. I'll say, hey, I think you were looking for this. Now, you might have seen that this link turned red. And that's because OneDrive and Outlook are integrated together, and they're letting me know that this link that Deborah sent me isn't going to work for Megan. But it doesn't just tell me that. It lets me change it and fix it, again, using the same consistent sharing experience that exists across Microsoft 365 and that I'm already used to. Now, you might be wondering, well, what if I hadn't noticed that the link turned red? Well, that's okay, because when I hit send, Outlook will prompt me and it'll warn me. It'll tell me, hey, you're about to send this email to Megan, and it's not that link isn't going to work for her. And I can choose to send it anyways in case I don't care or if it's intentional. But if I want to make sure that I'm sending emails where the links work for my recipients, this integration really helps me do that. The sharing integration in Outlook, you're able to know what kind of link you're sending before you hit send. And this is really important because you're not always pasting links that you created or that you created recently. You might have pasted a link that somebody else sent you, but you don't know what permissions that link has or who that link is going to work for. But this integration shows you all that information straight from within Outlook. And then crucially, as I demoed, it's able to detect access issues before you hit send. And this is great because it allows you to avoid those sometimes awkward follow-up emails when you send a broken link and you have to send a link that actually works for everybody that's on the to line. And the way that you fix these issues is, again, with that same sharing experience that you're already used to that appears across Microsoft 365. It's been available for about a year on Outlook on the web, and it's rolling out now for Outlook on Windows. So next, this one's really exciting just because it's one of the top items on User Voice. And so I know that there's thousands of people out there, maybe some of you in the recording, watching the recording, who've been asking about this and who want to know how it works. So let me show you how it works. We call it Add to OneDrive. So here I am in Outlook on the web, and I see that Alan emailed me a folder to a new project that I've been added to. So I'll go ahead and open it. And I know that this folder is going to become really important to my day-to-day work because this is one of the new high priority projects that I've been added to. And so I'll go ahead and I can add a shortcut to it in my OneDrive. And you'll see here it says adding one shortcut to my files. And there we go. So let me show you how this works. So now I'll switch over to OneDrive. And you'll see that that folder now appears alongside all of my other files and folders in OneDrive. And there's a little indication here letting me know that this folder actually belongs to somebody else but I have it here in my files along with all of the other files and folders. And of course, when I open it, I'm kept within OneDrive, and all of those same files load inside of that folder. But again, you might be wondering, we showed this on the OneDrive website, but we know that there's a lot of users who start every day outside of the OneDrive website. But of course, this folder appears everywhere in OneDrive. And so as an example, here I am in File Explorer, and you'll see if I zoom in here, you'll see that that folder appears again in File Explorer in my files with all of the other files and folders that I have in OneDrive. Of course, I can double click it and all of those files appear as well. So Add to OneDrive allows you to select any folder that's been shared with you that's part of any OneDrive or any library. You can add a shortcut to it to your own OneDrive. And so when you do this, that folder appears alongside all of the other files and folders that you have in your OneDrive. We showed this on the web, and we showed this in File Explorer. But of course, it's also in Finder, and if you're on the go, on OneDrive, on the iOS app, and in our Android app as well. So we call this Add to OneDrive, and it's really useful when you have a folder that's been shared with you that you want to be able to access easily because you need to, it's either really important to you or you need to access it pretty frequently. And so you don't have to go and remember, who sent that link to me, like where is it, no, just save it to your files so it's alongside all of your other files and folders, no matter how you're using OneDrive, whether it's on the web, iOS, Android, File Explorer, or Finder. This is rolling out right now as a public preview, and so please go ahead and try it out and let us know what you think. So next, let's switch over to Steven, and he's going to show us this new feature that we call Move and Keep Sharing.
Thanks, Raphael. So one of the common usage patterns we see in OneDrive and SharePoint is that you'll create a file in OneDrive and begin collaborating on it with a few select people as you kind of get the document into a good state. Once you're done with it, you want to publish it out to a SharePoint Teams site library. But when you do, and you move it there, you lose all of those permissions, and you have to reshare the file with those few people that you'd collaborated with originally. This is where our new Move and Keep Sharing feature comes into play. I'm here in my OneDrive, and I've got this file, the financial reporting document that I've been collaborating on. If I go into Manage Access, you'll see that I've got two specific links here. I've got a specific people link that grants edit permission that Deborah and Nestor can use, and I have a specific people link can view that Adele can use. Let me show you what happens with Move and Keep Sharing. When I go to the Move flow, and I'm going to move this to our US sales site, I now get a new option to keep sharing with the same people. All I have to do is check the box, click Move, and OneDrive is going to go and move the file behind the scenes. When it's finished, let's see what has changed. Let's go over to that US sales site. So I'll pop over here, find the document that I just moved over, and we can see it's already there. And if I go into Manage Access, you'll see OneDrive has automatically reshared that item with the same people that had access to it when it was in my OneDrive. Deborah and Nestor still have a link that gives them edit access, and Adele still has a link that gives her view access. And they all get email notifications letting them know that I've moved the item and that they have a new link to access it.
Yeah, so we know a lot of users have been asking for this because it can be challenging when you move a file to a different site and you have to remember, like, oh, who had access to it? Do they still need access? Who still needs access? Like, how do I do it? No. So with this feature, you're able to focus on your work, and OneDrive is going to take care of making sure that the file is still shared with the right people if that's what you want. This is rolling out now, so a lot of you already have it, and all of you will have it by the end of the year. So next, this is a small feature, but I think it might be my personal favorite feature, and Steven gets the honor of showing it to you guys. So let's switch over to Steven.
Thanks, Raphael. It means a lot that you're willing to let me demo your favorite feature inside of OneDrive, and I have to agree, it's probably one of my favorites as well. It's such a small thing that it really makes a difference. We've all had that experience where your manager sends you a PowerPoint deck that's got 200 slides in it, and they ask you to say, I don't know, look, can you review just slide 80? And it takes time to load it and then find the slide you care about and make the changes. In OneDrive, we've got a feature that really makes that a lot simpler. All you have to do is inside of PowerPoint, right-click on the slide you care about and select Link to this slide. That will copy a link to your clipboard. And let me switch to another browser session. So I'll click on that link, And you'll see it'll open up PowerPoint and take me directly to slide 4. And this works even if other slides have been added before it or after. It's such a small feature, but it really makes a difference in helping you save time and be more productive.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So, as the name implies, it's a feature that lets you get a link to a slide. And like Stephen mentioned, it continues to work even as slides get moved around. This is really important because it's really common to, share out very rough drafts of PowerPoint decks. But then as the deck begins to mature, slides get added in front of that slide that you shared, or maybe, you're rearranging the slides, but it's a link to the slide. And so that link will always take people to that slide. It's been available for about a year on PowerPoint on the web, but we saw people like it so much that we've also added it to PowerPoint on Windows and on Mac. Now, another way to direct people to specific content is with @mentions, and these have been around for a little bit over a year as well. But this year, we're making them even better. We're adding a feature that I know a lot of people have been asking about, so maybe some of you watching the recording, and that's the ability to assign @mentions as tasks. And so when you do this, people get an email notification just like you're already used to for @mentions and other comment notifications. We've updated them this year so that you're able to see those comments without needing to open the document. They just show up right in the email. And now with tasks, of course, that email is going to let you know if someone has assigned you a task. And of course, we also show you all of the context surrounding those comments. And my favorite part is that you're even able to reply back to that document, back to that comment straight from within Outlook without having to open the document. And so these updated email notifications really save time and allow you to collaborate faster, again, with all of this information straight in the emails without needing to open the document and even letting you reply to the comment from within Outlook. These are available today. And like I mentioned, we're also adding the ability to assign tasks in Office comments so that you're able to clearly identify action items. The way that you do this, it's really simple. It's like I showed in that screenshot a couple slides ago. You just create your @mention and then you select that assign to checkbox. It's available already for Word and Excel on the web. And of course, the team is working on adding this for PowerPoint as well. So now, Stephen and I are going to show you another way that you can be more productive with Word.
Perfect. So I'm once again here in my OneDrive, and Raphael and I are going to show you the new feature, Open in Review Mode for Word. So I'm going to find the document that Raphael and I have been working on called the Contoso 5-Year Vision. And I really need to get Raphael's feedback on this document. But I want to make sure that I stay in control of the content. I don't want him making any changes that I wouldn't approve of, and I want to make sure that before it gets sent out, I have complete control over the content. So to do this, all I need to do is click Share, choose the new Open in Review Mode Only option, click Apply, and I'll send it over to Raphael's alter ego, Nestor. So I'll click Send, and let's switch over to Raphael's perspective to see what this looks like.
So here I am in Outlook on the web, and I see this email that Irvin sent me. So I'll go ahead and open it, and you'll see that when I do this, one of the first things that I'll see is Word will tell me that I'm in review mode. And so I can leave comments, but you'll see that I'm not able to directly edit the document. So let's see how this works. As I look at this document, I see that this item hasn't started, but I'm pretty sure that should have happened already. So let me go ahead and leave a comment right here, and I'll say, hey, when is this starting? I have to be professional, so I'm going to fix my typo and send that comment. Awesome. Yeah, this looks pretty out of date because in the sync meeting that we had, I think we said we weren't going to do this. So I'll go ahead and remove that. And then I know that this is a pretty complex aspect of the project, so I'm going to maybe suggest adding an intro section. So maybe we should add an intro here. Now, you'll see that because Stephen shared with me in review mode, all of these changes require approval, but I'm not able to approve my own changes. Instead, Stephen has to approve them or any other editor of the file. So this new feature, again, it's called Open in Review Mode. And we think that it solves for a common need where you want to share a file with someone and send it to them and get feedback from them, but you still want to remain in control of your own document. And so you're able to do that now by sharing a link in a way where it locks people into this review mode where they're able to create comments, but any changes that they make need to be approved by you or any other editor of the file before they make it into the final version of the document. If you're already familiar with track changes on Word, this will look very familiar to you because a lot of it works in the same way, except that people can't approve their own changes if they don't have full edit permissions to that file. Now, how common is it for you guys when you get a sharing email, but you don't know how relevant it is to you because maybe the sharer didn't type a message along with the email and maybe the file name isn't particularly descriptive. And so, you open the file and then, you find out, it wasn't really relevant to you. You close the tab, but you wasted time. So we're adding this new feature that hopefully will save you back that time and better inform you as to whether a file will be relevant to you by including a short summary of it in bullet point form inside of the sharing emails. We call this at a glance, and with the power and intelligence of the Microsoft Graph, we're able to take that document and generate what we think is a short 3 bullet point description of it. We hope for this to come out later this year, if not later this year, very early next year for Word and PDF files. So definitely keep tabs on Message Center and our tech community forums. So with OneDrive, you're also able to share without letting recipients download the file. You can do this for Office files. It's been around for a while, but this year we've also added support for PDF and other file types as well. And the main benefit here is that you're able to keep your documents in the cloud. And the reason why you might want to do this is to avoid out-of-date copies that can get sent around as email attachments. And then as that document is getting uploaded, people are still forwarding around outdated versions of that file via email. That can just cause confusion. But also, if the only copy of the file is in OneDrive, you're able to maintain strict access control on it by saying, everyone who has permission to that file and removing anyone who no longer should have permission. So again, these are available for view-only links for most of the file types that we have in OneDrive. We know that a lot of you have been asking for us to support this also for folders and for video files. So we'll have more to share about that soon. The team is working on it. So again, definitely keep track of us on Message Center and our tech community forums. Last year at Ignite, one of the features that we announced at the time was our #3 user voice item. And so we know that there were a lot of people that were waiting for it and that were excited about this. And so we're including it again this year. So with request files, you're able to pick a folder and request files to it. But the way that this works is that you get this anyone link, and then when you send it to someone, they're going to get a streamlined experience that lets them upload files, but unlike sharing a folder, they're not going to be able to see any of the files that are already in the folder. And so as they're uploading content to your folder, they're not going to know whether you've already sent that to other people. And they're not going to know whether they're the first one submitting content or if maybe there's been a lot of other people that have submitted before them. And one of the cool parts about this feature is that you get a notification once files have been submitted. And so you don't have to keep refreshing that folder, seeing if people have been uploading content to you. And instead, you can focus on what's important to you. And you can simply let OneDrive email you whenever there's actually something new for you to take a look at. So again, we call this request files, and it works with an anyone link, which means that it'll work for internal and external users, and it's available now. So now let's switch gears, and we're going to give you an overview of all of the ways that you can manage and control external sharing in OneDrive for the unique needs of your organization. So let's switch over to Stephen.
Thanks, Raphael. Let's switch gears here, and instead of talking about end user experiences, we're going to talk about how you can manage collaboration in OneDrive and SharePoint. And we're going to start with an overview of the different types of policies you can expect to find in the product. Now, before we get started, I do want to note we have a bunch of different policies, and we don't expect that every organization is going to use every single policy. Instead, if you have a need or a requirement that you're trying to meet, you should be able to find the policy that will work for you. So let's dive in. When it comes to policies, we tend to group them into 4 major buckets. You can control who can share to external users, focusing on the sharing experience. You can control which external users can be shared with, focusing on recipients. You can control what can be shared, focusing on the content. And you can control how external sharing is used. Let's start by talking about how you can control who can share to external users. By default, you can enable external sharing for everyone in your organization. Everyone's allowed to share with people outside of the company. But you can also choose to restrict external sharing to only specific people. The common use case here is where you may want to have users go through training before they're allowed to share externally. Once they've completed the training, you add them into a security group. If you're a member of the security group, you're allowed to share with external partners. And if you're not, you're prevented from doing so. And of course, you can choose to prevent external sharing from all users inside of your organization entirely. Now, this is very rare. We don't find many organizations that have 0 needs for external sharing and collaboration, but I wanted to show you that it exists for the sake of completeness. Let's talk about how you can control which external users can be shared with. Now, once again, by default, you can enable sharing with anyone via those anyone links that Raphael and I showed you at the very beginning of this session. Or you can choose to restrict external sharing to only specific people, using those specific people links that we showed you earlier with the one-time passcode experience. You can send a link to a single person or multiple people, but they can't forward those links on to others. Now, you can also restrict who you're allowed to share with by adding a block list of domains. You can choose, say, hey, if we have a competitor like Fabricam.com that we know we're never going to want to collaborate with, you can add them to a block list, either for the entire organization or on a site-by-site basis. Similarly, you can set up an allow list. You can create an allow list of who you are okay with people sharing with. If you have a really trustworthy partner, say Microsoft.com, you can only allow your users to share with people at that domain. And you can configure this on a per site basis as well. So you can set up one site for sharing with people at Microsoft.com and set up another site for sharing with people at Fabricam.com. You can also restrict sharing to only specific guest users that are already in your directory. The common use case here is where you as IT decide who is and isn't added to the directory. End users are allowed to share with those users, but they can't invite in anyone new. Now, let's talk about how you can control what can be shared externally. Once again, by default, you can enable external sharing without restrictions from OneDrive, from SharePoint, any content stored in any location that can be shared externally. But you can actually add cool policies on top of this, like blocking sharing of sensitive files via DLP. What this means is files that have sensitive information, like say social security numbers or credit card numbers, can be blocked from sharing externally, even when the container that they're stored in are allowing external sharing. Now, there's a lot of power in this capability, but we don't have enough time to cover it all today in our sharing session. Instead, you should check out a talk by Sesha Mani called What's New in Security and Compliance in SharePoint and OneDrive, where they'll dive into this topic, DLP, labels, and far more. Now, you can also block external sharing from OneDrives and allow external sharing from SharePoint libraries. And of course, you can block external sharing on an individual library basis as well. So if you want to set up specific SharePoint shared libraries to allow external sharing, you can do that. Now, let's talk about how you can control how external sharing is used. Now, the first policy I want to talk about is our mandatory anyone link expiration policy. This allows you to require all anyone links to expire after some time frame, say 30 days. The real power here is that end users can choose to get a link that expires sooner than that, but they can't make the link expire longer than that. What about when you have locations that have unique requirements? Well, that's where our new per site mandatory anyone link expiration policy comes into play. This allows you to override the policy on an individual OneDrive or an individual site collection. If you have a site that you know, say a marketing site that you don't want an expiration date to apply to anyone links, you can set that up. If you have a site that has extra sensitive content, you can shorten the expiration date. And if you have a site that maybe is just a little more lax than your normal policy, you can set a longer expiration date as well. This is a really powerful capability to let you get the right granularity of policy to match the content that you're storing and collaborating on. And this feature is available now. Another new expiration feature we've been working on is the ability to expire external access. You can require external users to lose access to site content on a site-by-site basis. And site admins then have the ability to vouch for external users and extend that expiration up to whatever the IT policy is. So let me give you a quick walkthrough of how this works. Let's imagine we've set up a policy of 90 days. And on day one, I'm gonna invite Elvia to my site collection so we can begin collaborating and working together. And she gets her own 90-day expiration date stamped. Say 30 days later, let's invite Tim to the site, and Tim gets his own unique expiration date, so I can manage those partnerships separately. Now, before Elvia's access expires, we've been working really well together, and I'm really valuing her feedback, so I'm gonna extend her access, and she gets another 90 days for us to collaborate together. But poor Tim, no one really liked working with him. When his 90 days are up, I'm gonna choose not to extend his access, and he'll lose access to the content all at once. This is a brand new feature that we've been working on, and we're really excited to announce that it's rolling out right now. Now, I'm going to talk about our default link policies, and I apologize in advance. I'm going to say the word default way more than I ever thought was possible. Now, the default link is the link that is selected by default when you open up the share dialog. The user clicks share, doesn't change anything. By default, that's the link that works for anyone that we've been talking about and demoing throughout today. But you can change that default link to be a link that only works for people in your organization. And the real power here is that if users need that link that works for anyone, all they have to do is go into link settings and make a deliberate choice to get the link that works for anyone. Users are protected by default. If they click share, type in a name, click send, you can feel confident that the link is not going to get exposed outside of your organization. But if the user does need that link type, they have that capability with just the choice away. And you can also change the default link to specific people if you desire. In brand new this year, you can actually default links to people with existing access on a site-by-site basis. This is a really powerful capability and is especially useful when you've spent a lot of time customizing the permissions on your SharePoint site. If you've made sure you've got all your permissions set up and don't want users creating sharing links when it's not necessary, you can change the link default to people with existing access. Users who click share will not change the permissions, but if they need to add someone who didn't already have permission, they can do that. As I said, this is a brand new feature and it's available right now. And just like there's a default link type, there's also a default link permission. This is the permission that's selected by default when you open up the share dialog. It's an edit link by default, but you can make it a view link if that's what you would prefer. And I think I'm done saying the word default, so that feels good. Now that's the kind of brief overview of all of the different types of policies we support in OneDrive and SharePoint. And again, we don't expect every organization is going to use every single setting, but we're really happy with the types of policies we support and think if you have a policy need, you'll be able to find the setting that works for you. So now let's switch gears and walk through how to manage collaboration, a practical guide, if you will. So instead of thinking about specific policies, let's talk about what is the framework you're going to use when it comes to setting up policies and managing collaboration inside of your organization. There's really 4 steps you're going to follow when it comes to managing collaboration. First, you're going to establish the boundaries. Then you're going to set up your users for success. You're going to educate them and then monitor. Let's walk through each of these 4 stages one by one. When it comes to establishing boundaries, this is really about finding the hard requirements that you need to make sure your users never cross. These are things that you really want to prevent your users from doing in order to prevent them from making critical mistakes for your business. Requirements are generated by your industry. If you're in the healthcare industry, you may have very specific needs you need to meet versus if you're in the financial industry. This will also come out of discussions with your security team and will be a negotiation back and forth, as many of you are familiar with, to decide what is and isn't acceptable for your content. And of course, depending on the sensitivity of the content that you're storing in your organization, that will also dictate what is and isn't allowed for that content. Now, examples of boundaries might be things like disabling anyone links for sensitive content, or setting up a who is and isn't allowed to share externally. And to give you an example of how you can establish boundaries, let's switch over to Raphael.
So here I am in the SharePoint Admin Center, and I'm going to go into the sharing page underneath policies. And this is where I can manage all of the different external sharing policies and settings that Stephen just went over in just a couple minutes ago. So I'll scroll down here and I'll click on more external sharing settings. And I'll see that one of the options here is allow only users in specific security groups to share externally. So I'll go ahead and select that. I'll click Manage Which Security Groups. This is a new UI that we released earlier this year that makes it much easier for you to do this. Now here in Contoso, We have a training that our employees go through before they're able to share externally. And when they go through that training, they get added to a security group. So I'll type in the name of that security group right now, external sharing training completed. And also, I'm going to allow my sales and marketing team to also share externally. And so we have a security group just for them. And the other thing that I'm able to do with this feature is I can choose how they're able to share externally. And so I know that the sales and marketing team has a really strong need to be able to share with anyone links. So go ahead and select anyone for them. But unlike the sales and marketing team, the rest of the organization by default doesn't have that need. And so I'm going to only keep them as authenticated guests only. And we might in the future spin up a different training to learn best practices for anyone links. So I'll go ahead and I'll save this for now. And then I'll scroll down here and I'll hit save again. Now, let me show you how the end user experiences are changed. So I'll go over again to my OneDrive over here. And I'm playing the role of Nestor, and Nestor isn't part of the sales team. And so you'll see that now, when he selects a folder or a file and hits share, unlike before what you saw at the beginning of the session, any one link is not the default. And not only is it not the default, but if he goes into link settings, he's not able to select it because he's not part of the sales and marketing team. But if he selects specific people, he can again share to Larry@fabricamairlines.com, and it would work just like we showed at the beginning of the session. But now let me switch characters and let me go and show you what it looks like for Adele. So Adele is a member of the sales and marketing team. And so you see in her OneDrive, when she selects a file and hits share, she'll still have the anyone link available and it's set as the default. So this works just like we showed in our very first demo today. But finally, let me switch over to Alan. So Alan, like Nestor, is not a member of the sales team. But unlike Nestor, he hasn't taken that training. So when he goes and selects a file and hits share, you'll see that he's not able to select anyone links. And also, additionally, if he selects specific people and he tries to share with an external user, you'll see that he gets a message letting him know that his organization's policies don't allow to share with these users. And so I hope that you've been able to see how this is a great way for Contoso to establish boundaries in its organization. So let's switch back to Stephen.
Thanks, Raphael. Let's move on to that second step now, which is setting users up for success. This is really where you want to give your users the tools to be successful. Your users need to accomplish their jobs. They need to be able to collaborate with people. And you need to make sure that they can maintain the security of your organization. Setting your users up for success is really about customizing the experience to make sure that they can accomplish both of those tasks and stay balanced. Examples of this include things like setting up that default link type policy that we talked about, and I said the word default way too many times earlier, or setting up expiration policies. Now, for an example of how you can do this and how it builds on the ability of establishing boundaries, let's switch back to Raphael to show you how default link policies work.
So here I am again in the SharePoint Admin Center, and we are going to build on top of what we just did. So again, we still are limiting external sharing to our sales and marketing team and the users who have completed our training. Now, the sales and marketing team is allowed to share with anyone links, but I'm going to change it where by default, they get a link that only works for people inside of the organization. So I'll select that, I'll scroll down, and I'll hit save. So now, let's switch again to the perspective of Adele, who was or is in the sales and marketing team, and let's see what changed for her. So here we are in Adele's OneDrive, and you'll see that now when she selects a file and hits share, she'll get a link that only works for people inside of the organization. But if she wants to share with an anyone link, because she's a member of the sales and marketing team, she's still able to go into link settings and select that option if that's what she's trying to do. And so like Stephen mentioned at this point, this is a great way for Contoso to make it so that employees in the sales and marketing team, if they're not thinking, like by default, links that they're sending out won't be able to be shared outside of Contoso, but they're still empowered and enabled to create anyone links if that's what they're trying to do is a deliberate choice.
Thanks, Raphael. That's a great example on how you can make sure that your users are set up for success. Now let's move on to step 3 in our framework, which is education. Education is really about helping them collaborate securely while taking advantage of all this work you've just done, setting up a framework, establishing boundaries, and setting them up for success. And education is an ongoing process. You'll need to make sure that users who have been in your organization for a long time get their memories refreshed every once in a while. And of course, as new users come in and are hired into the company, you'll want to make sure that they get educated as well. Examples of education are things like creating a portal, which has all of your company's policies and guidance so your users can read it and understand it easily. And another example is the custom help link, which is a really cool feature we've actually had in the product for a couple of years now, but we've never shown on stage. Raphael, take it away.
Thanks, Stephen. What's funny is that even after today, we'll still be able to say that we've never done this on stage. So here we are looking at the perspective of Alan. And if you remember, Alan isn't allowed to share externally at all. So let's go back and see what his experience looks like. So if he selects specific people, hits apply, and tries to share with Larry, he gets this message saying he's not allowed to do that. And it's because he hasn't taken that training, so he's not part of that security group. So let me show you what we can do in Contoso to make this more efficient. So of course, this wouldn't be a 300 level session without a little bit of SharePoint PowerShell. So I already have my command here pasted into my clipboard. So I'll paste it in, and let me just zoom in a little bit just to show you what's going on. So I'm running the set SPO tenant commandlet where I'm able to set a specific URL as a help link, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. So let me go ahead and submit that, and it'll just take a couple seconds. And there we go. So now let me swap back into Alan's perspective, and we'll select a file, hit share, select specific people, and you'll see that this time when he types in Larry at fabricamairlines.com, again, he won't be able to share with Larry, but we now have this section here at the end of the error message that says to learn more, click here. And so when he clicks on that link, he'll be taken to that URL that we set up at Contoso, where he's able to kind of self-resolve this on his own by taking that training, which will automatically add him into the security group. And so this is really easier for him, and it's easier for Contoso IT because it's going to prevent him from raising a ticket with us.
Thanks, Raphael. That brings us to the final step of our framework on managing collaboration, which is monitoring. Now that we've got our users set up for success, now that we've established boundaries and we've educated them, as IT, our job is primarily now to monitor and make sure that users aren't doing anything abnormal or finding suspect ways to get around policies. This is really about understanding how your organization is using collaboration in OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams, and then taking things that you learn from that and feeding it back into the process. Do you need to tweak your defaults in order to make sure that users are doing the right thing? Do you need to turn up your policies a little bit to improve security? These are all things you'll learn when you can spend time monitoring and watching for all those weird things to happen. Examples of this, including using the productivity score in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center to pull insights out and understand how collaboration is being used inside of your organization. Things like the audit logs will let you perform anomaly reporting to see, hey, is there a user who's downloading or sharing more files than normal? And finally, you can use our external sharing reports feature to pull out detailed information about what is being shared and with whom. And that kind of concludes our quick guide on how you can manage collaboration inside of Microsoft 365. Once again, it really comes down to these 4 steps: establishing boundaries, setting users up for success, educating them, and monitoring. Once you've done all 4 of these and apply them to your organization, you'll find that it's much easier for users to collaborate and that your content is more secure. Let's switch back to Raphael to close us out.
So I hope you can see how OneDrive makes external sharing easy and secure across Microsoft 365. We began by showing you how easy it is to share using shareable links in OneDrive, either ones that work for anyone in the world that has the link, or ones that block external users outside of your organization, but that can still be forwarded easily within your organization. And we showed you how you can share securely to a specific external user without requiring them to create an account. Stephen walked through all of the different ways that you're able to manage and control how external sharing works for the unique needs of your organization. And we covered a lot of new ground in terms of what's new for end users and for admins. We demoed a lot of this, but we weren't able to get to all of it with the time limits for the recording. So definitely take a look and go search for what interests you. So again, thank you for watching. It was fun recording this, and I hope that you found this session valuable.